my showings ran late and there was no way I was going to get from Bountiful to home in time. So I decided to park it at a Starbucks. Okay, so it looks like we're recording. We're good to go. Let's see, we've got a few people here. So we've got, looks like 4 so far. So hopefully we'll get a few more. Welcome. We're going to win with buyers. So I was just showing a buyer. So I'm definitely in the buyer mood today. Definitely. So before we start, does anybody have any questions or something you want to make sure that I address today? Okay, we're going to get started. So usually when you start as a real estate agent, you're going to start with buyers first. That just tends to be. And so usually an agent will start with a buyer or 2 or 3, or you end up having buyers that you're trying to convert over to those listings. Buyers turn into sellers. So as your business carries on over the years, then your buyers turn into sellers. And so that's how they have a direct correlation. But for me, both buyers and sellers, they really become my referral partners. And so that's really what I'm after, is not just having them be a repeat client, but having them be a buyer. I mean, just a referral for me that gets them to talk to their friends and family and say, just you can't do it unless you use Patrea. Like, she's just the best. And that's what we want them to do for you. So an example would be, I have a client calling me. I'm actually not representing this client. I'm representing her. I sold one of her houses. I'm now selling her second house. She's doing a custom new construction. I didn't represent her on the custom new construction. They found a lot. They bought it, designed their plans. But she called me to actually take a look at her closing disclosure on her loan. Now, of course, I am not licensed as a loan officer, so I make that very clear. So it's a personal opinion. But I was able to give her a personal opinion with some questions to ask. And her response was, and I said, as I always preface, I say, I'm not a loan officer. However, I see a lot of loans. So I'll take a look at it. And I said, I'm not a loan officer. And first thing he said this, but I trust you. So you just need to tell me what to do or what questions to ask. So for me and my business model, that's the relationship I want to have with my clients. And it starts with those buyers, because make the home is, did we pay too much? Did we pay enough? Did we get the right location? I do most everything for my clients. So that's a different business model than others may have. So I'm going to let you know how my buyer package goes. So I'm going to share my screen with you. Here we go, my buyer. Okay. I think that's the right desktop. Let me go ahead and close this out and close this out. I'm reviewing a contract for a buyer. So I'm going to let you know what you might find, that the things that I do with my buyers, you might say, I'm not doing that. That's your business. So that's how you could choose. But I'm going to let you know what I do. My goal is all about servicing my clients. So let's see, right here. So I wanted to go over a couple of things related. This is something that Keller Williams had put out, and it has a couple of important pages. Well, first, I'm going to do this. Sorry. Before we do that, I don't always work from this exact questionnaire, because I've been doing it now for a number of years and I'm usually on the fly. Like, I'll take somebody's phone call, and if I'm even in the car, I'll do a buyer consult on the phone just initially to build some rapport, and then I'll get on a Zoom. I used to do more of my buyer consultations in person. Now they usually happen over Zoom. However, if I feel like I need to build rapport for a client with a potential new client, I definitely need to get face-to-face in front of them. So if I am speaking to somebody who says they are interested in buying a home, or they'd like more information, or how do they buy, the first thing I do is just ask questions. I am a nervous talker, so learning to ask questions rather than just being really chit-chatty was hard for me to do. And because I get nervous, and especially when I didn't feel confident. And so definitely having something to work from is really helpful. So this can be created in a Google Forms. So this is what we plan to do. This is just the information that we want to collect to go in our database, whether they end up being a client today or a client later. We want to build now. So people you reach out and become a resource for now, will, if they don't convert then, they will convert later. So I've even had clients buy without me and then come back to me and say, we should have hired you. We're now ready for you. I had a client buy a house through construction without me. 2 months later, asked me to sell it for him. So 2 months later, asked me to sell it for them because they shouldn't have bought it. So we're like, okay, what do you like about it? Okay, right. Okay, let's get it sold. So I collect this information: name, first name, last name, phone number to reach you, indicate, what type of phone number it is, and also find out how did they hear about us? Because anybody who speaks your name needs to be reported. So anybody who says that either referred me and I spoke to them or sent me a text message and said, hey, I told so-and-so about you. If they call you, this is their name. I send out a $25 referral, thanking them and thanking them for the referral. So they get an Amazon gift card, $25 for anybody who shares my name. So I saw somebody post my name on social, it was called, I think it was Lehigh Link or whatever the city ones are, and sent them a $25 gift card for advertising my name. So I definitely reward. So that's who they referred. Then I get full names and email addresses and phone numbers right away. So then I find out, I do like names and children of their ages and children's of their names. This is part of that conversation of just getting to know who they are, getting to know who they are, what their life is like, just building rapport. You don't have to do it so formally and say, I have a form. This is just the information you're wanting to collect in that conversation with them. So I usually, with buyers, they usually nowadays reach out by text. So then I usually reach out to them and thank you so much. And I say, when's a good time that I can get you, that we can speak on the phone just for a few minutes? And we set up a time and I just get that phone call so they can hear my voice, my enthusiasm, how I'm excited with them, and I can hear their tone and excitement. And then I find out whether they're owning or renting. And then number 14 here, it's really important for me to find out, what their days are like. So I'm not saying, do you prefer text messages or do you prefer phone calls? I do typically say, I do have I had a client that did only want to communicate for the most part by email. They were traveling a ton and that's what they preferred. But people are now more toward text messaging and I try to respect that. The one thing I put clear is if somebody's buying by themselves, I ask if there's anybody else they're going to rely on within their family or friends to help them make the decision, because I want to recognize and make sure that person, because if you're out showing and they pick a house and then all of a sudden they're like, oh, I want my dad to look at it. Dad shows up out of the blue and says, oh, this is awful. This is not what you want to buy. I don't want you to do that. So you definitely want to find out who is a decision maker, even if they're not actually buying the loan. Then if they're a husband and wife or a partner or a couple, I treat them as one person. So I immediately at this point, before we go any further, I say, look, I want everybody to be on the same page. So if I've got Braden and Shelty, their husband and wife, and really it's mostly my main point of contact happens to be Shelty, but Braden needs to be kept up to speed. I say, I treat you like one person. In the text message, Braden, if I'm asking you a question, Shelty sees it. Shelty, if I'm asking you a question, Braden sees it. So my clients get used to this, to where it can be 2 or 3 years later and they ask one of the random questions, they'll still put it in the group text. So I think it's funny. I laugh because they always use the group text to reach out to me, even if it's a few years later and it has nothing to do with a home loan. So, but that really solves a lot of problems. So we just kind of set that understanding. Then for my case, you probably don't have to start this conversation yet, but I represent a lot of families now where I do aunts, uncles, cousins, brothers and sisters, parents. And so I let them know now that I really, really value and respect their privacy. And so they need to let me know who is allowed to hear about what's going, like advice. Otherwise, if I run into a family member or even a friend or a neighbor that may know them, I don't tell anybody what's going on. I don't say, oh, I just saw Chelsea and Braden and we had so much fun. We looked at a couple of houses. What? They're buying a house? I keep everything really private. So that privacy is really important to me. I tell my clients, if you want people to know about it, you need to tell them. And if they're going to call me or they want to call me because we know each other and excited, you need to give me permission whether I can share anything or not. If I have a client that calls or a sibling that calls, say it's another client of mine and it's their brother, and they call and say, oh yeah, you're working with Shelty. And I'll say, yes, I am. And they're like, how's the home shopping looking? And I literally will say, as you remember, I can't disclose, you'll have to ask them. So that is how I keep that really private. And then the next question I do ask is, are they pre-approved? Have they met with a lender? Every once in a while, they already have. Okay, tell me about that lender. How did you choose that lender? It was my parents' lender and they told me to use it, or my friend at work, it was their brother. Great. Okay. How far along have you gotten in that approval process? Okay. Do you want a second opinion? And first of all, I say, have they provided you a loan estimate? Like if they, or not a loan estimate, have they provided you a pre-qualification, a pre-approval letter? Now there is a difference and it depends on who you talk to. There's pre-approved and pre-qualified. For me, pre-approved is where they've run the credit, they have taken the information that the buyer has given them, like how much money they make, and they've run their credit, and they've said, oh, well, based on that, you're approved for a purchase price of this. If you put a certain amount of money down, I ask if they have a pre-qualification. And for me, pre-qualification means that the lender has received all of their W-2s, tax returns, and bank statements, and have been putting them through an automated underwriting. So automated underwriting. And that tells me that we are going to have loan approval if we attach a house to this application. So as long as we meet that criteria. So and then I ask them, well, if you've got a pre-approval letter, have they given you a loan estimate in writing? A loan estimate that shows me what they're pre-approved for. If they put a certain amount of down, what would it be of today's interest rate? What are they paying in loan origination fees? I'm one of those agents that knows all about my clients' loans. They give permission to their lenders to talk about their loans with me. So I want to make sure that we are, in fact, at the right price for them and that they are not being charged $20,000 in origination fees when they could be with a lender that's only charging $3,000 in origination fees. So those are the things that I look at. So I want to make sure we have a really good pre-approved pre-qualification so we are ready to shop. And then, of course, if they're purchasing cash, then I ask them, will you be able to verify those funds? Where would they be coming from? Do they need to come from an investment account? So we do have this conversation, these type of conversations. So I haven't even said, great, let's go buy a house. Let me make some money off of you. I'm just trying to learn about them and say, okay, where's your down payment coming from? If you're paying cash, that's the other thing. Where's your down payment come? And then I ask questions like, are you aware that when you buy a home loan, that you have about a minimum closing cost between $8,000 and $10,000? That is over and above your down payment. So I do take some time right here, if it leads into it, talking about what a loan looks like. So what do you have to purchase your home with? Do you have a down payment? Do you have any savings? And they'll say, yes, I've got about $20,000. Okay, great. Okay, typically, so I'll help them understand, because the lender's really, depending on the lender, but especially if they're bringing their own lender, some of them don't go through kind of how much that they have to have down payment money and closing cost money. Now, in today's market, I explain that process so they understand. And then I say, in today's market, sellers are giving concessions to help cover those closing costs and help cover. And then I say today, and then I start to talk a little bit about interest rates. So, but initially, let's back up. So first and foremost, I'm just calling to collect a little bit of information down to about this lending point, because I want to find out, is it worth me spending an hour to an hour and a half of my time to either be on Zoom with them or meet them in person, or do I need to give them a little bit of homework already? So that's the first thing I'm doing. So if that helps you understand, that's what I'm doing. I'm pre-qualifying them as a buyer to work with me. Are they a today buyer? Are they a down the road buyer? And am I doing a Zoom with them or just a phone call, or am I meeting them in person? So I feel like they're at a point where they're either way, if they're not, they have a few things to do or things to pull off, or they're just learning about buying a home. At this point, I set up, so I try to get them on the phone to collect this information before I actually do a buyer consultation. So this is like my pre-qualifying phone call, and I do not do it over text message. I try to get them on the phone to build that rapport. So it's that contact sport that Keller Williams talks about. Real estate is a contact sport. So I build trust with them. In this time too, I ask if they've looked at any houses yet. It's not on this list, but you need to ask them, have they seen any homes yet? Oh yes, we've stopped by some open houses. Have you had an agent show you a home? Where have you been looking for homes? Because right now, if they've called me, they've already been on Zillow. They're already marking favorite homes and they've already been on Zillow. So the reason why I go in, so then I go ask to set up an actual buyer consultation appointment. And I let them know, hey, what I'd like to do is like I set a time. It's going to take us between 45 minutes to an hour. And I'd like to talk to you about the whole process and teach you how to buy a home and what working with me looks like. And just as important, I want to explain to you how I get paid. Can we set up a time to do that? And so I'll set up the time, and it could be on Zoom. Every once in a while, it's on just a phone call, but it's usually on Zoom. And, but it's also in person. I'll do it in person as well. If I feel like they're a little bit reserved on the phone, I will ask to meet them in person. And I'm not telling you, you have to spend money every time. I usually end up paying for a meal to meet with them, or it could be meeting at a Starbucks and getting them a drink or a little bit of a dessert. But we just find a place to meet. And you can also choose to have them come into the office if that is convenient for you. I don't live really close to our office, so it's actually better for me to do a Zoom or meet closer to them. So I don't live really close to our office. So any of those can work. So you can meet in person. So then I have that appointment, and I really just kind of summarize and go over a few of these details that I collected over the phone and make sure I have the information accurate. I may not gather children's names and ages on that first initial touch over the phone. So I fill in as I get to know them a little bit about asking questions about them and getting to know them. So, and why do you want to buy a house? And that's when we start to just get to know each other. So these questions can be out of order. So first of all, we're trying to ask them, what would ideally work best for you? Are you looking for a condo, a townhome, or a single family home? What areas are you looking in? Where do you work? So I have clients that say, oh, I'm totally fine with driving 45 minutes. After I interview them and talk to them, I'm going to find out possibly that really isn't going to work. So they're really trusting me to help navigate where they're going to purchase. We definitely want to find out if they need to sell a property first. Do they already own? Have they owned before? At first, you can kind of have it as a checklist, but you're trying to just have a conversation with this. This is kind of naturally migrating, but definitely having a worksheet to work off of like this is really helpful. So, and then, you know, I asked them the question, if you were pre-approved today, had the money in savings, and were able to find the home, would you want to buy immediately? And that question you would think is yes. Sometimes it's not. Sometimes it's not a yes, because you might find out after talking to them that if it's a husband and wife or a couple of some sort, they may, well, I might be applying for graduate school, so I don't know if I'm still going to be here. Well, that's just building that rapport and teaching them, because they're still going to refer you. They're still going to refer you other people in the client. Now, of course, you go through the cities. What do they like about neighborhoods? I always find out what kind of cars they drive. Do they have any trailers? If there's a pickup truck, we've got to accommodate the pickup truck. Doesn't mean it can fit in the garage, but it's definitely going to have a driveway. If you've got a homeowner who the town, say it's a townhome and it doesn't have a driveway, they are going to have a tough time parking that in the shared parking spots. So definitely making sure you can accommodate the vehicles and if they have any toys, things like that. And then their bedroom situation, whether they have pets or not, if they have dogs or not. And I do have my own criteria. I mean, when I walk my properties, I let them walk through it, then they ask me my opinion. And I'll definitely tell what I like and don't like about a property. I'll say it doesn't make it a deal breaker. No, every once in a while it's a deal breaker for me. I'm like, I'm not selling you the property. I don't care if you love it. Like for instance, one was just sent to me from one of my buyers, and they're like, this is a short sale. We can get a really, really good deal. My first home I ever bought was a short sale. So I'm like, great. Well, then I pull it on Google Earth, and I do teach my clients that when I send them properties and they want to see them, they're also required to click on the map link, the street view, and the aerial view. I want them to look at, if they don't have time to drive by it, to really see the home. So I just did this, and it's right next to a sewer treatment plant. We're not living by a sewer treatment plant. Noisy when the brines turn, and they do have odor on occasion, and we're just not doing it. We'll find something else. I do have properties, if it were a townhome, for example, where there's a certain builder, D.R. Horton, they have a townhouse that does not have a half bath on the main floor. I just want to make sure my clients are aware that that is the case, because when people live in their home, I want them to be so grateful they're there and that they think of me. I help them get there. So if I said, hey, you don't have a half bath on main floor, are you concerned about that? When grandma and grandpa come over, they're going to need to go upstairs to go to the bathroom. When you're potty training a child, if you don't have any yet, you're going to need to send them upstairs to go to the bathroom. Is that an issue? So that's kind of the things that are an example for that. So, and then some people are adamant they have to have a master bathtub. So it can really eliminate a house. Now, can you put one in? Possibly, but these are some things that you just get to know what their real must-haves on the home. So this questionnaire just kind of goes through that. So it's important to know if it has yard space or not, or whether they need to park something on the side of their house. Just really getting to know them. You know, schools, I do have people that have to be within a certain school boundary or within a driving distance to a private school. So that's a perfect example there. So this just goes through that questionnaire of different things. And I like to find out about them, you know, and I try to find this out up front. Like, what are their favorite foods? Where do they like to eat? You know, the breeds and the names of their pets, and things that they like to do, so that I can then tailor any type of gifts that I'm going to do for them. And I have that information up front. So if that makes an example. So does anybody have any questions so far on formulating your own intake form when you are getting to know a new buyer? Do they have any questions?
Do you make all those questions at the same appointment or on the same call if you're on the call?
Oh, no. Yeah. Like the first time I meet them, my first call I make, I'm just getting this basic contact information and kind of trying to find out how did they hear about me, and a little bit of information just about themselves. And then I do ask, okay, you know, have you met with a lender? Those basic questions. Them, and I'm spending an hour, I'm collecting a lot of this information right there in that appointment. The rest of it. So when I'm meeting with them face to face or over Zoom. So I say it's going to be a 45-minute to 1 hour call. And so I am collecting all of this within that 45 minutes to 1 hour. Because if I didn't collect it and I go and set them up a home search, I'm not getting the right criteria potentially. So I still want to know what they imagine. Like I had a client call me and say, we really want to get into a single family home. And I said, that is great. Have you been pre-qualified yet? You know, I don't tell them, hey, you might likely not be able to get one, because I've asked them what they do for a living. I asked them where they work, if they're going to school. So I'm getting to know them. And they'll say, we really want a single family home with a backyard, or we really want a home with a 3-car garage, and they haven't purchased a home before. I say, well, step one is let's get you pre-approved. We don't go shopping unless we know what you can afford. It doesn't mean that the lender might come back and say you can afford 700,000, but you may not like the payment. So then we'll adjust that with the lender and say, okay, our maximum purchase price is 500,000. See, I don't ever want to show you a home you can't buy. You're going to fall in love with it, and then everything else is going to be disappointing. So I'm definitely spending that time to go over their criteria. And so going over their criteria. So we're definitely, that lender component is really important. So you can stop right there. You don't need to go into bedrooms and bathrooms and space. It's really like, what do you imagine yourself? What are you shopping for? What you've probably already been on Zillow. What have you been looking at, and what are the price points? And they'll say, oh, well, I've been looking at these homes. It's about 750,000. Okay, let's get you with a lender. And so let's get you with a lender. So I say, as soon as we're done with this appointment, I'm going to connect you with my preferred lender. I am going to put you in a three-way. I'm going to send you her contact right now. I'm going to put you in a three-way text with her, you guys, all of us, me, her, and you. And I'm going to introduce you to her via text. So we already have our lending text set up. And then I talked to him about, I said, now, loans are like shopping for cars. All lenders are not created equal. They're very close, they're similar, but where you might get no fees at one dealership, and so, I mean, fees, but free mats and car washes for life in one. Another one, you might have no fees, but no car washes. So there is a little bit of variation. And so I said, okay, but I trust this lender, and I have multiple lenders I work with, but I said, I trust this lender. I do have one I prefer to send everybody to first. And then I said, now, once you're under contract, if you feel like you want a second opinion, absolutely, 100% get a second opinion on your loan. But right now, I just want to get you pre-approved with a lender that I know and trust, that's going to give us accurate information and accurately pre-qualify you. And so typically that's the direction we go. And it's okay, when we're done with our meeting, I'm going to set that up. After I'm done with the meeting, I call the lender and I say, I'm putting you in a group text. These are who the clients are. Here's a little bit about them. Here's their contact information. Here's the group text. She's ready then to pipe in. And the minute that text goes out, she responds, introduces herself, and says, when are you available for a call so we can connect? And if they said, well, not until after work, and said, well, meanwhile, here's a link to the loan application. You're welcome to get started before or after our call. If you have any questions, I'll answer it. So that happens right after my buyer consult. And so they're already connected with a lender that I trust. So, and we go from there. Now, again, we don't get any kickbacks from lenders. It's really just about what's best for the client. And that's why how I choose my lenders, is who's going to take care of me and my client the best. So with that process, so in the buyer consultation, once I've collected the information, I explain to them how I get paid. So what's really important about that is how I get paid. And so how many of you, or any of you, like, really, has anybody been through a buyer broker agreement with a buyer yet? Nobody has? Okay. This document scared me to death when I started. Do you agree? Okay, okay, who is, oh, sorry, myself. Somebody's ringing my doorbell at my house. Sorry about that. Sorry about that. Okay. I'm like, I thought somebody was trying to get into the Zoom, but it was actually, okay. So that document really scared me. So I just decided I was just going to get to know and embrace every paragraph. Okay. So I was just going to embrace that document, and I was just going to get it out of the way from the very beginning. Well, it served me well, because the laws changed and you have to have it signed up front now anyway. So I just did not, there were so many agents that would just slip that document in with the offer, because the person was really excited. Oh, you've got to sign these documents. And then they just slide it through. And that just didn't work for me. I tell my clients, I'm a full disclosure agent. So anything I know, you're going to know. And I tell my clients, I am going to make you a pro at buying a home. You are going to be an expert. I am going to teach you all the ins and outs of buying a home, and you're going to be a pro. And I've had people say to me, well, then don't you think other agents that they won't need you? And I said, well, it's just like having a really great attorney. They don't become attorneys. And so it just creates a repeat business for me. So I said, there is no question. If there's anything that I communicate to my client, I set a standard and I say, if something I say does not make sense to you, you don't understand, you need to tell me. There's no dumb question. So if I've gone over something too quickly, ask me to explain that to you again or explain it in a different way. So what we do is I do have a chart, a flow chart. I don't go over this yet. I go over this. It depends on how fast we're moving through the process. I essentially get them to the point that we're going to pre-approve, and then we're going to have another call. I said, once you're pre-approved, we're then going to have another call to go over your criteria, and I'll fine tune your search criteria based on that. But I said, but I know you're going to be looking at homes before we have the pre-approval done. So I'm going to go ahead and invite you to utahrealestate.com. Explain that it is where all listings start. It's like Mother Earth. It's the center of the earth. Everything starts at the multiple listing service. Then any site you search that is not the multiple listing service, utahrealestate.com, it is receiving, it's syndicating, it's receiving its information. So if you want to know the minute the second a property is listed in your criteria, you need to be set up with a link with Utah Real Estate. So I say, I'm going to invite you to, I said, once we get done with this consult, I'm going to send out a request for you to set up an account with Utah Real Estate. It will link the two of us together. And I'm also going to share with you the app. You are going to log into that app. Now you can use the Keller Williams app. It's up to you. It works well too. This is just the system that works for me. So I have them load the Utah Real Estate app. I just have not become proficient in the KW app, even though it is a really good app. So you can talk to other agents and see who's using it, and they can show you how you do it. And so I already have them searching on Utah Real Estate, using the Utah Real Estate. If they favorite a property, I already see it now in Utah Real Estate on my end. So that's just what I do. Then right now, I don't go through this during my borrow consult. I don't go through this process. This is when we start to search for a home. I'll use it as an opportunity. Maybe we're out looking at our first houses. I will go through this with them. Can we meet a few minutes early? I want to go through, or I'll bring it into a home, especially when I know the house is vacant on the search. And I'll say, hey, I set aside a few minutes. I'd like to go over the buying process with you. And I'll go through this flow chart and explain to them how this buying. So, and this is not proprietary information. This is actually produced by Keller Williams. So, that stuff I would give it to you. So, so what I do next is I go over let me tell you how I get paid. That's really that was weird. We got disconnected. Is everybody back again? Can you hear me? Anybody want to turn off their microphone and let me know?
Yeah, I can hear
Let me
you.
turn off their mute.
Yes.
Let me know that you can hear me.
We
Okay,
lost
thank
you
you.
for a
I
minute.
appreciate that. Okay, I'm going to share my screen again. I don't know what happened. Okay, so here. So I'm jumping over to SkySlope for just a second, because what I do is I explain to them how I get paid. So I probably should draw out on a piece of paper. That'd be a good idea. Haven't done that yet, but I could do that. Essentially, I say a seller puts a home under It's a little bit weird that I keep jumping off all of a sudden. I'm not moving anywhere. So that's really weird.
Is everybody there? We lost her again.
Yeah, I'm still here.
I'm here too.
She must be having issues with the signal.
Should we leave and then try to use the link again, and maybe that'll work?
I'm not sure.
I'll wait 5 minutes.
Maybe someone can say a joke, can tell a joke. Giovanna, do you know any jokes?
No.
Hmm.
Okay, I'm so sorry, everyone. I
Back.
had to call Cassandra to let me in again because I'm not the host. So I had to switch to a different service provider so that I don't know what made it unstable all of a sudden. So I apologize for that. Okay, we're gonna do this again. Okay, this is like the most important part. It's like a total cliffhanger. Okay, hold on. Okay, this is the part that matters. Okay, so I explained to them that the seller agrees to pay the seller their commission and then agrees to pay the buyer a commission. We don't necessarily need to know what that is, Kevin, but I know what I charge. So commissions are negotiable. However, my buyer, you guys don't have to agree with how I do it. This is just how I do it. My maximum fee is 3%. So we are going to be, the state requires that we have agreement between a buyer's agent and a buyer as to what the buyer's agent fee is. I said, the fee that I charge, I only have 24 hours in a day. I can't work with everyone. My fee is 3%. That is probably, have you heard of that percentage before? Yes or no? And I say, well, that's important because we're going to have an agreement between you and I. On that agreement, I'm going to put my maximum fee that I charge. And my maximum fee is 3%. That's important because we do have some home builders, Century being one of them, that is currently offering 4 and 5% of buyer's agent's commission. If we do go under contract on a property like that, you will be receiving 2% of my commission because my maximum fee is 3%. That's important for my clients to know because I don't ever want my clients to think that I sold them a house because I make more money. Then I do explain to them that there are situations where we don't know exactly what that fee is. It's not published, what the buyer's agent is going to pay. I mean, the seller is going to pay. So if we're not with a builder where we can call immediately, we just don't know for sure. And it's negotiated in the contract. when I make an offer to a property, I'm always going to ask for that 3%. They may counter us back to 2.5%, 2.75%, 2.25%, maybe 2%. I am willing to be flexible on that commission. We're going to address it case by case on the offer that we make. Depending on the offer that we're making, I may be willing to adjust down to 2% depending on the property and the situation. We're going to have a conversation. You're going to know about it. But the contract itself is for 3%. If I'm willing to take less, such as 2.5% on a property, we'll talk about it. I want to create a win-win. I'm a team player. Now, remember, all of you, this is about referrals. Okay. This is about getting repeat clients and referrals. So I say to them, if that is the case, and we go under contract on a property, for example, at 2.5%, I'm going to addend the buyer broker agreement to 2.5. You will not owe me the difference. Okay. And then I pull out the actual document. It doesn't mean they're signing it yet, but I pull out the actual document. So I'm showing you here, I have all my documents with me in a hard copy. Let's see. I think that's all of them right there. Okay, so we're just going to do a fill. Okay, so what I'm explaining to them is I pull this document out and I said, this form is written by the state. I do not write it. It is required not only on the state level, but also at the federal level. Before I can turn the key on a door and let you in the door, we have to have an agreement and understanding on how I get paid. So if you have not decided for sure if you want to work with me, but you would like to go see a property, then I'm going to write this agreement for that property only. And in my world, I write it for 24 hours. That's just how I do it. Agents, just letting you know. I said, I'm not holding you hostage. I only want to work with people that want to work with me. And there is a level of trust. So once I've shown you a property, we're getting to know each other. Because I do have people that just call me out of the blue and say, I want to see a property. And this is the way I'm able to legally show them a property. They usually end up being clients of mine. I can't even remember one that hasn't, once I've been able to meet them at the door. But I don't hold them hostage. So I explain to my clients that this is how it works. So I say, okay, we're going to have an end date. And now that we've had a discussion on your time frame, it looks like we would need a buyer broker agreement for about a year, or we'd need a buyer broker agreement for about 6 months. So we're going to go ahead and set that. And then you're going to be shopping in Salt Lake or Utah County. So that's what's going to go here. This is what matters right here. This is what I point to for them. I said, treating kind of you guys like buyers. This is where we get paid. So if an agent comes to you and says, hey, Sheila, I'll use for example, do you have an agent yet? No, I don't. Well, if you use me, it won't cost you anything. That is a lie. And I have been explaining that since I started real estate, where I memorized and learned this document. It's actually better than it used to be because it's been edited, but I say that's a lie. My fee is typically paid by the seller and it's part of your purchase price. So you're actually both paying it. Full disclosure, you're both paying it. The seller is paying it out of their purchase price. However, they're going to sell that house for that price, whether they're paying a commission or not. Whatever price they agree on, they have already agreed to pay a seller's agent commission and a buyer's agent commission. So they've already got it in their minds that they're paying a commission. But you are financing that purchase price. So the truth is you're both really paying for it, but you're not paying it outside of the purchase price. It's typically negotiated in the contract. If there was a property that came up that was for sale by owner and the seller was refusing to pay a buyer's agent commission, then that would be part of your closing costs at close to pay my commission. But you would know all about it before you even signed the contract. So there's going to be no surprises. So right here, I show them that this is where I put 3%, but I do it in handwriting. And then I also explain to them that I have a $400 transaction compliance fee. And that is paid to Keller Williams. And then of course it pays on to me. And that's where I hire my transaction coordinator to make sure all the documents are compliant and in order. So I charge a $400 fee there. So I said the $400 fee and 3%. Now again, and then I start testing them. If we go under contract and the property is 2.5%, do you have to pay the difference? And they still stumble and they're not sure. And I said, the answer is in our situation, it's no. It's likely a no. And so we'll addend the contract. And I said, okay, so paragraph 2.1, it says that you are obligated to pay me 3% on any home we put under contract and close. However, remember where I told you that the seller's already agreed to pay a fee? 2.2 means that that 3% can be satisfied by a third party, which in our case is going to be the seller. 2.3 means that if there is a difference between the 3% in 2.1 and the commission agreed upon in 2.2, so if it were 3% and 2.5%, then the difference would be collected from you, the buyer, at closing. And in my case, I say, you're going to know when we go under contract how much I'm getting paid and what the commission is. So if I told you I agree to accepting 2.5 on the $700,000 house we're doing, do you owe me the difference? They sometimes still hesitate, and I explain to them, the answer is no. And how are we going to fix that? I'm going to addend this contract for that property address and put it at 2.5. So I'm very clear. I take my time on this document to make sure they understand. And then in my contracts, I don't do protection periods. I leave mine at zeros. My clients always choose to work with me. I can extend when I not to. If they decide not to buy and a property comes up that I showed them before, they'll just call me. For me personally, I've kept protection periods at a 0. You may speak with other agents that explain it differently, do it differently, and it works for them. And if you like that approach better, do it. Totally works. So, and then I do go into buyer representation and disclosures. I explain to them, I'm going to move this over. I do go through these paragraphs. I explain to them that there's going to be, that they're going to be disclosing disclosures, personal financial information, so that I'm going to exercise care and diligence in evaluating the physical and legal condition of the property selected by the seller, but that they're going to hold. I said there's going to be some disclosures in here that you're going to hold the buyer's agent against any claims. So meaning I'm going to advise you, I'm going to help you do your due diligence, but the ultimate decision is yours to make the decision. So this agreement is here for you, I will make sure you have all the disclosures and that I explain to you what's going to keep you and your money protected through the transaction. However, if something happens that negatively affects you, you're not going to hold the agent liable. Then, and I said, I'll explain about that a little bit further. That's why I won't go through every detail. I'll explain about that in just a minute. Then I go through the agency relationships. So, but let me go back a little bit. Before I go into detail, I just explain how I get paid. So I go through just this section right here. I'm really gauging, does this client want to move forward with me? So I say, how do you feel about that? Great. Okay. With that, how do you feel about moving forward with me as your buyer's agent? And they typically say, we'd really like to move forward. So if that's the case, then I say, okay, I'm going to prepare the documents, or I may already have them. And I'll say, okay, let me walk through them in detail with you. So I do try to get this signed at that appointment, or I set up a time. I say, let me go ahead and prepare the documents. Can I reach out to you in 45 minutes or an hour? And we'll just walk through signing these documents. So I do try to get them signed. And so we'll go through that. And so let's just say we're now there. Yes, we want to move forward with you. I call them back on the phone, or I say, if you wait a few minutes, I do actually have their packet already ready in SkySlope, ready to go. So just to let you know, if I need to make any quick changes, I have it ready before I go to the buyer appointment. It is ready to send. I have a hard copy with me, but it's ready to send. So ready to send. So when I send it over to them, I start again. I show where I filled out the sections. I explain this section again on how I get paid. And then I specifically say, I take this document very seriously, and agents through relationships, this section is really important to me. So I want to be very specific. This is my duties to you as your buyer's agent. It shows that I am your exclusive buyer's agent. Any properties that you have any interest in, I am representing you on those properties. You can count on me to take care of you. And to best of my ability. Specifically, I point out that I read this in specific, as an agent, as agents to the buyer, the buyer's agent and the broker have fiduciary duties to the buyer that include loyalty, obedience, full disclosure, confidentiality, reasonable care, and any other duties by law. I let them know I take that very seriously so that they can trust that I'm going to fiduciary and take care of them in a, financially, I'm going to take care of them. I'm going to be loyal to them, obedient. I'm going to disclose to them everything that they need to know about the property. I'm going to protect their interests through confidentiality. I'm going to exercise every bit of reasonable care as if I were buying the property myself. And so I make that very clear that they can count on me and that this paragraph means a lot to me and I want them to know it. Then I do explain to them the concept of limited agency, that there could be a situation where I may be representing a seller and maybe the house isn't on the market yet, but they'd be the perfect buyer for it. And I may be representing both sides in a transaction. And both the seller and the buyer have to agree to it in a separate document. So they're not signing this document saying that they will agree to that, but I do explain to them that it could possibly happen. Then I also explained to them that there also could be a situation where there is a listing that is listed by an agent in my office. Because we share the same broker, we'll still have to sign the same document. However, that agent will be exclusively representing that seller. I will be exclusively representing that buyer. And if there was a situation we need to speak with our broker, he would keep his information limited between the seller's agent and the buyer's agent. And I ask them if they have any questions. Then number 6, I let them know if you have any, I'm going to give you professional advice. I'm a real estate agent. I know I will be able to give you lots of information and you can trust on the information to be true and accurate under my real estate license. However, real estate agents know a lot about a lot of things. We know a lot about loans. We know a lot about home inspections. We know a lot about radon and different things. However, we are not licensed in those trades. So for example, and I give them an example, we may be walking a house and you're going to say to me, what do you think, what would it cost to remodel this bathroom? And I'm going to say, well, I think this bathroom would cost about $7,000. However, I am not a licensed contractor. I do always preface, or they'll say, do you know what type of tax benefit we might have from buying this? If I do know potentially what the tax benefit is, they're going to say, I am not a CPA or an accountant, but I think the tax benefit could be something like this. We need to verify it. Do you have a CPA or an accountant? So I'm very clear and very organized in my conversations with my buyers that they know that I know a lot of things. I'm going to give them reliable information, but not information that they can hold up in court. Like we need to verify it. So for example, I just had a client say, what do you think it's going to cost to replace the toilet? Well, I think it's going to be about $300. What do you think the plumber is going to cost on that? About $150. I'm not a plumber. I don't know exactly. Or do you think that this could be a mold problem? Honestly say, if you don't know, I don't know. We're going to have to get an expert in there. But if there's something you can say, well, I do think I know that, you do need to be clear that it is outside of your scope. It's outside of your scope. So if you have pilly broken concrete and you say, oh, that's really not something you should worry about, but in fact, there is a water problem that's happening, you want to be careful. So you want to just be very clear. I'm not a licensed person. So I'm going to give you professional advice. And in that, if it's outside of my scope of a real estate license, you'll need to confirm that information with a licensed professional. And then I point out here, somebody sued somebody somewhere. So now we have paragraphs 7 and 8. Paragraphs 7 and 8 have to do with dispute resolution. Well, we're going to go ahead and check May so that we can both choose whether we want to use mediation or not. Now that's my own personal preference. However, we are not going to a lawsuit. You are not suing me. I'm not suing you. I said, that's not the plan. I said, this is just here. I said, I haven't ever had a lawsuit situation. However, it's here for a reason. It helps to set those guidelines if something did arise. So if something did arise related to commissions and so forth. So that's why those paragraphs are here. And then I just explained that essentially that's the entirety of the contract. The buyer authorizes that we're going to list the closing on the MLS, and that the buyer further agrees that if there's any transaction of this equity of property that the earnest money is, let's see, that it may be placed in, I don't go over this actually. I don't go over this detail. It's just too hard to explain, but they're welcome to read it. I don't explain about earnest money could be placed in an interest-bearing account of which the interest would be paid to the Utah Association of Realtors Housing Opportunity Fund. So if you want to go that in detail, you can. I don't. And that's how I carry it. But I said, do you have any questions related to this contract? Now, for me, I tell my clients, as long as we are not under contract and as long as you are not buying a house that I've already shown you, I'm not going to hold you hostage to this agreement. If you want to cancel it at any time, I'm willing to cancel it. I do not hold anybody hostage. Just not worth my time. And they move forward and sign it. I do honor that. I haven't had anybody want to cancel a contract, but if they did, I would totally cancel it. So if we weren't under contract and they don't make any offers on properties I've already shown them, I will cancel the agreement. Anybody have any questions?
I do.
Yes.
I have 3 questions. First one,
Wonderful.
if you can share the questionnaire with us by email. Second
Okay,
one,
what I'll do is I'll send it
uh,
to Cassandra and then have her send it out.
okay, good. Um, how do you do when you have a client that has a disagreement with a different agent, but they
Oh,
don't want to
that
work with them anymore and they want to work with you, but
great
the agreement is for 1
question.
year already? Because this is happening with me right now.
Giovanni's all right. This is
Giovanna.
so that with Giovanna, I wish I had mentioned that. I wish I'd brought that up at the beginning. So thank you so much. Okay, so first and foremost, when I'm up in that initial, like, kind of feel them out, I'm asking them, have you worked with, have you seen a house? Have you worked with another agent at all? Have they shown you property? If they say yes, I'm saying, did you sign an agreement with them? Well, sometimes it's no, sometimes it's yes. Okay. So the next question I ask is, did they explain to you how they get paid and that they are now your exclusive agent? If they say yes, then I'm going to go one direction. If they say no, I didn't know that, I just wanted to see a property, then I say to them, it's up to you. I cannot solicit your business. I cannot be your agent and I cannot tell you to cancel that agreement. So whether they're already in one and they knowingly went into it and have been working with them for a year, or whether they have not. Now, this is definitely going to be a broker moment with Mike to get the real answer. So Giovanna, I recommend you call him, our
Okay.
broker. However, I'm going to tell you how I would navigate it, and I'm very curious to see if it ends up being the same or not. I essentially say, I cannot. I have signed, and as being part of the Salt Lake Board of Realtors, I have agreed not to solicit other people's business. However, if you're coming to me and saying, I didn't know that I had signed that, I would say, well, I recommend you go back and speak to that agent and explain to them, I didn't realize I signed. And did they give you a copy? That's another question. No, they didn't give me a copy. I just signed it. So then I say, okay, well, you're going to go back and you're going to want to get that copy and see what it says. And then secondly, if you don't want to work with them anymore, whether it's me or anybody else, you need to let them know that you've decided to go a different direction and that you want to cancel the agreement.
Oh, okay.
Once
So
that
they can
agreement is
cancel the agreement.
well, they might that buyer's agent may say, I'm not letting you out of it. It's in here for a year.
Uh-huh.
Then I'd call the broker and say,
Okay.
I don't want to be in this agreement anymore. I'll tell you that broker is going to want it to cancel.
So their
It's
broker, right?
yeah, if the agent isn't
Mm-hmm.
going to cancel it, then they personally need to call the broker and say, I
Okay.
no longer want to be under this agreement with this agent.
Mm-hmm.
And I would
Okay.
like to get out. Now you say, that's just hypothetical. That's not for them in particular. You want to keep it in the frame of if I were in that situation, this is what I would do. Does that make sense? Versus saying, you can work with me after you go do this.
Yes.
So say, and then once you no longer have that agreement, I'll look forward to working with you. And it's not
Okay.
the first time that's happened to me. It's happened multiple times where people have wanted to work with me and they're already under another buyer broker agreement.
Yeah, this is
So of
happening.
course I want to
Happened
learn
me.
more. I want to say why,
Mhm.
because I had a property where I listed it and the sellers came to me and said, our home isn't selling. We want you to sell it. Well, you're under a current listing agreement. Okay, well, it's coming up for renewal, but we have a little bit more time before we'd like to try to cancel it. I actually took the approach where, let me look at the property first. Let me see why I think it's not selling. And I actually ended up sharing the listing with the other agent, not even in our office. And now she's at Keller Williams. So, but buyers, that's not so easy to do. Sellers, that's a little easier to do. So you need to just tell them, hey, we are, let them know, look, I absolutely would love to work with you. However, my hands are tied because I can't work with you without a buyer broker agreement in place, and you already have one in place. If it were me and I was not happy with my buyer's agent, I would transparently let the buyer's agent know. It could be in writing by email if they don't want to talk to them face to face, but let them know I no longer want to move forward with the buyer broker agreement. I no longer want them the representation, and I am requesting, and I would do it by email because it's in writing, and I'm requesting that you send over and this is I'm formally canceling the buyer broker agreement. You'll need to talk to Mike and see if a buyer can cancel it that way, or if it has to come back from the the buyer's agent. And then say, and once you have that cancellation, I'd be thrilled to work with you, but you need to be free from that agreement. If the buyer's agent refuses to send over the cancellation, then call the broker or email the broker.
Okay.
I would call the broker personally.
Okay, thank you. And my last question is, what is a sky slope forms?
Oh,
Is that a
SkySlope is
website?
under Utah Real Estate. It's the form I like to use. So not all the forms are always there. Nothing's perfect. So we used to do them here under forms and forms library. And that's where I am here. Like you go here and you'll type in like due diligence. So here's the due diligence checklist, and you'll bring them all over and then you'll fill them out. So you'll create a packet and then you can come over here and populate it. But then I needed to download the form, and then I needed to upload it into DocuSign and then get my signatures. Okay. Then the MLS came up with, they did a third-party SkySlopes forms. So you click SkySlope forms, and it brings this up, and then I choose create, and I add my buyer. And then I can add, I don't have a property address yet, so I just do hatch purchase or hatch buyer, and then I choose create. And so then it creates, and I have a packet that's already in there. So then I choose, what did I just put? I have me in here as the sample. The one I was showing you was my sample training. So I have it in here and it has already preloaded forms, and I just grab the ones that I'm going to do. I need the buyer due diligence checklist. I need the wire fraud. I need your form to say, okay, for me, the buyer broker agreement is, in my opinion, for my buyers and the way I'm, long-winded, I feel like I can give them form fatigue. So when I do mine, I do the exclusive buyer broker agreement and the wire fraud. Those are the only two I do when I execute the buyer broker agreement. Okay. So then I have it in here and I can now fill it out. And when I click on, see, it has me twice. I can put in my name as the buyer, my email address. I can add another one. If it's an entity in an LLC, I can click it and have a signer. So, and I can, at the beginning, you can populate it with the MLS data. And so I do it here, and then I explain to them, I always have this document signed right away because I feel like it's very easy for people to get caught up in some wire fraud. So I explained to them that this is a state disclosure required. And I said, it tells you to never wire money without verifying who you're wiring the money to and why. And I essentially just say, how about this? Can you promise me that before you ever wire any money, you talk to me first? That's it. And they say, yes, we'll do it. Okay. Then when I do the actual offer, that's when I have them sign the other disclosures, which is the buyer due diligence checklist and the for your protection to a home inspection. I also never send a document over for my client to sign that I don't walk them through while they're signing it. I just don't. Now I have clients that'll beat me to it and they'll sign it and I still make them, okay, I'm glad you signed it. I'm emailing it to you and I need to walk you through it. So I walk clients through every single offer. Even if we've written 6 offers, I go through every single contract. The reason why I do that is for 2 reasons. One, I want to make sure that they always can say that they know what they've signed. And 2, sometimes I catch an error. I make a mistake. And I can catch it when I'm walking them through it. So I have that double protection. So, and so I, even when the buyer broker agreement is, I say, when you're ready, I've got those documents ready in your inbox to sign. Let me know when you're ready for me to walk you through those. It doesn't have to be by Zoom. It can be over the phone because I now know that document very, very well. So I'll say, do you have it in front of you? Okay. Remember how we talked about it? Okay. Your information's there. The contract is for 6 months. You can see we're looking in Utah and Salt Lake County. And here we are, that very important section, section 2, 2.1. My fee is 3% and $400 compliance fee that I pay to a coordinator to make sure that we're completely compliant with Keller Williams and the state. And then I move into, remember, 2.1. 2.1 is where you are not, 2.1 is where it can be satisfied by the seller. And then 2.2, if there is a difference, the buyer is responsible for that difference at closing. Then I test them. If my fee is 3% and we just wrote a contract for 2.5, do you owe me the difference? And then they say no. Oh, how do you know it's no? Because you're going to addend the contract to 2.5 for that property. Ding, 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 ding. You're winners, winners, winners. Good job. You passed the test. So, and I do say that. So we have a lot of fun. And then I say, guess what? Okay, we're going to get that pre-approval and then we're going to go have some fun. Let's go shop for some houses. Let's find some great places. Let's find you a great home. Let's get you a great place to live. And so that's the part. And then I use that, if they haven't accepted the acceptance on the Utah Realtor, utahrealestate.com, I then use that as a touch the next day. Hey, I can see that Johnny has accepted the invite, but Lisa, you have not. Oh, I haven't. Okay, I'm going to resend it to you. Okay, great. Okay, has everybody got their apps working? Great. Okay, now we need to have our phone call. We've got you pre-approved. And now we need to have your phone call about where we're going to shop. And so then we set up that phone call, set up that criteria a little bit more specific, and then I turn on the siege. But I tell them, I'm not turning on your search yet because we don't know what you can afford and we don't know what you want to spend. So we'll turn on that search as soon as you've got that pre-approval ready. So then that motivates them to get that pre-approval, that pre-qualification done. And if they come with their own lender, then I ask that lender all the questions. Did you collect all their documents? Do you have their pay stubs? Did you verify income? Did you get the bank statements? Have you verified what their down payment is? I ask all those questions. And so that if they're bringing me a lender, then I'm vetting that lender as well. And then if I have any concerns, have you sent them a loan estimate? Okay, I'll go ahead and get that to them, but I do then an email or a text message with that lender and say, Johnny and Lisa, will you give Julie, your lender, permission to talk to me about your loan? And then I remind my clients, I first ask them, they know, I've already established that they want me to do that. So every once in a while I have a client that they just want to do their own numbers. They're just really savvy and it's really more of a gauge of temperament. Hey, let me know if I see you're really savvy with this, with working out your loan, but if you want my opinion or want me to look over anything, let me know. Every once in a while I'll have someone. Anybody else have any other questions?
Do you send these documents through DocuSign too?
No, I
From
send them through
this-
SkySlope.
Oh, so
Yeah,
you can send them
SkySlope,
directly from
for
here.
signatures. Yeah, for signatures.
Perfect.
Yeah, so let's say I'm doing that one. And then let's say I'm happy with it. So then I'm going to say prepare for signatures. And I'm going to name the envelope. So I'll say buyer broker agreement and who the client is. And then I go right here and then it's already placing them for me, but it's not always perfect. So you have to check it because sometimes it throws them in the wrong place. So it's got my signatures and then my client's signature, and then I just press send. And when I press send, it asks me to write the email. Now, this is the message they came up with. I haven't figured out how to change it. So I always change it myself manually. I'm just not a cheers, Patrea, Marolf kind of person, but I've never figured out how to fix it. I'm sure it's not hard. And then I just send it out.
Oh, so sorry. So we don't have to use the DocuSign. We can use this instead.
You don't have to.
It's
There's
a lot
areas where you
easier than
lose if you do that.
DocuSign.
If you download from the multiple listing service and you upload to DocuSign, and then you can actually grab those documents and populate them into KW command automatically. Like, it's very easy. However, I use a
Okay.
transaction coordinator, so they're not going to be doing it that way anyway. So I
Okay.
use a transaction coordinator, and within your first couple of deals, after you've done a couple of deals, like 3, hire a transaction coordinator. It is not worth $350 for you to make $350 to do it yourself. Get used to having a transaction coordinator. Just make it part of your business.
Okay.
I'm telling you from the hard way. I did like 10 or 15 before I finally said, I'm worth more than $350. I'm going to have a transaction coordinator, make sure and have a second eyes on my transaction for me.
So do
And then I
they
don't worry about it.
upload everything into command?
They do. Mhm. They load
Awesome.
everything for you.
Oh, great.
So sorry about that. Okay, I am a little bit over time, so I'm going to let you go. That's just going to get you started. But really is what's most important is getting through that. Read that buyer broker agreement, practice talking about it.
Can I
Re-listen
ask
to this
you
class
one
if you
more
like it.
question?
Say
Really
that,
quick.
yes.
Yeah, last one. So, when you have a buyer that is gonna buy a new home, who pays the commission? The builder?
New construction,
New construction. Yeah, sorry.
you're going to call the builder when you make it. So first of all, you guys always ready. If your client is going to buy, and even if you don't know if they're going to buy new construction, if it's in a certain area and a price point, find out every single builder that they might look at and register them. Tie their name to your name with every builder. So that's really important. Now, you'll want to then make contact with a sales agent at that particular track. Now, Ivory, they can sell all the tracks. What agent can? D.R. Horton, it's at individual tracks. So Lennar, they can sell most tracks, not necessarily all of them, but they can sell in a certain vicinity. So, but make contact, get to know sales agents at builders. My client got house number 1 in Verness, the new huge master plan on Traverse Mountain, because I have a relationship with an agent there, Sarah, and she let me know first. And we got that. We were house number 1, and we bought it before he paid 601, and my current client paid 674. And it was only an 8-week time difference. So build relationships while you're out figuring out your business. Stop into model homes and sit down with an agent and get to know the agent at that track. Because then all of a sudden, I have an agent at Ivory I've worked with for 7 years. He's my person. That's who I call. So D.R. Horton, I have multiple ones at different tracks. And so you're just building those relationships. And then definitely take a course on how to be a new agent, a new construction agent. Because I see my clients have 3 new constructions going on right now. I speak with that sales agent multiple times a week. I speak with the preferred lender multiple times a week. I show up at walkthroughs. I show up at closings. I show up in final walkthroughs, at midway walkthroughs. When my client wants to go look at the property, I show up. And those agents really value me, and they feel like I deserve to get paid. But you'll call that listing, you'll call the track agent, and you'll ask them what commission are they paying. And that can be negotiated, sort of. But you can expect it about 99% of the time it's not negotiable. Right now, most builders are paying 2.5% or 3%, but there were times where builders were paying 1%. And if builders are paying 1%, then you have to have a conversation. Give us a call, speak with a more experienced agent or with Mike on how to negotiate or how to build that other 1% into the loan. So at least get you to 2%.
Okay, thank you.
And with new construction, it is a different process. So that's why I recommend going and stopping into new construct. Our office will offer a new construction course, but also just go in and talk to the agents and say, I'm an agent. You don't have to say you're new. I'd just like to come and see your tract. Tell me more about it. What do you want from a buyer's agent? What would you like to see from me? And build relationships with tracts. And go speak with Sarah up at Inverness, because that's a huge master plan. Really fun to get to know what a master plan looks like. And their contracts are tricky. So, and they will not walk your client through the contract. So you need to do it. You need to read the contract and do it. And I'm in a Century contract right now reading. It's just the craziest contract. Crazy. And expect with new construction that earnest money is non-refundable on the day of acceptance. So once they pay that money, it's non-refundable in most cases with new construction. So definitely lean on your productivity coach. And new construction is we're selling it right now is the best way to go. Edge is offering on some tracks 11% to your buyer and paying agents 3%. So new construction. I work with Jeff Kirk at Edge. We have great agents at Edge. All of them are great agents actually at Edge. So, but Giovanna, I think I jumped on your question with new construction. Can you let me know if I actually answered it or not?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, good. Okay, anybody else have any other questions? Okay, I will make sure that this buyer checklist form goes to Cassandra and she can send it out.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Thanks for
And I
your
took
time.
Ignite 3 times over 2 years. So don't feel like you're never going to have another class. Somebody could teach this class completely different than I teach it, and you might resonate with them over resonating with me. So don't be afraid to take classes over.
I love how you do it.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you. I'm just all about
Thank you.
disclose.
That's right.
Okay, thanks so much. I'm excited to see you all succeed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good
Bye.
luck too.
Thanks. Have a good
Thank
night.
you.
Bye.
You too.